my last video, I discussed the allemande. In this video, I will be discussing the dance known as the Courante, which often follows the allemande in a Baroque suite, but it can on occasion come after the sarabande. Keep in mind this series is being made in conjunction with the release of my own freshly recorded Baroque suite in C minor for 2 violins. The purchase link for the EP and sheet music are in the description, so get them while they're hot. The Courante is a dance that most likely originated in the late Renaissance in France. However, by the early to middle Baroque period, the dance had become equally popular in both France and Italy. It is also always written in some variant of triple meter. Much like what I discussed in my video on the overture, 2 distinct forms of the Courante came into being in both Italy and France. These 2 forms being the French Courante and Italian Courante. The most common difference between these 2 versions is that the French Courante is more majestic and dignified in its tempo, and is often written in 3 half-time. The Italian Courante is quicker and livelier, and written in 3/4 and even sometimes 3/8 time. It appears to me that while the majestic French style dominated the early Baroque period, the adoption of the livelier Italian style by German composers like Handel and Bach enabled the Italian style to become the stylistic winner of the late Baroque. However, this is just my assumption, as the German composer Telemann opted for the majestically tempoed French Courante. To get to what the word Courante means, Courante and Courante are essentially the same word in 2 different languages, which translates in English to running or flowing, although I would argue that English does have a word that's related to the French word courant. We can thank William the Conqueror for that. This related word is the English word current, as it applies to the flow of a river or electricity. Not that the modern English definition of current really applies to the French courant anymore, but it helps at the very least to put the idea of something that is flowing into an English speaker's head. In English, we also refer to rivers as running, so the connection between the English current to the French courant, as defining something that is running or flowing, isn't too far removed linguistically. Rhythmically, courantes are marked by a hopping and jumping-like characteristic. Even in a majestic tempo, hops are achievable in choreography, so this is not a characteristic only attributable to the Italian style of the Courante. But nonetheless, this is important to mention as it helps us understand the characteristics of the dance, as this in turn leaves its mark on the accompanying music. From this, we can observe how musical courantes often stress the second quarter note of each measure, especially if the courante is in 3/2 or 6/4 time. They also make common use of dotted notes, which often leads to the necessity of employing the hemiola. This is basically a fancy term for the phenomenon of, say, a piece in 3/4 time, switching for an unspecified period of time to the feeling of a piece in 6/8 time. Since the amount of notes in both 3/4 and 6/8 time are mathematically the same, this change can and often does occur without the necessity of specifying a change in the time signature, since doing so would be superfluous. In my own Courante, I made good use of the hemiola by playing with the exchange of 3/4 and 6/8 time. The Courante, not unlike the allemande, has an upbeat. The length of the upbeat should not exceed a quarter note in length, but I would suggest someone composing a Courante opt for a shorter upbeat. Courantes are also mostly written in binary form. For the most part, the rules I laid out in my video on the allemande apply here. However, the difference is that a Courante doesn't need to have an A and B section of equal length. In fact, I've found it to be common practice that composers opt for a shorter A section compared to the B section. However, both parts repeat as usual and follow the same harmonic rules I laid out in my allemande video. An exception being that a Courante written in minor does not require the A section to end in the dominant, as it is allowed to use the relative major in the B section. It is also completely acceptable to employ first and second endings to join the A and B sections. So while formally similar to the allemande, I would consider it somewhat less strict than the allemande. A courante, like the allemande, ends each section on an unstressed beat, so thus has a female ending. When writing a courante in a suite, it can either be written as a singular work or be followed by a second courante that is a variation of the first courante. This is what is called a double in Baroque parlance, but it should be noted that not only courantes have doubles. A composer can double any dance in a suite, but the conventional approach seems to be to double a dance that is short in length. In conclusion, let's quickly go over the most important aspects of the courante again. A courante is written in a triple meter, has a short upbeat, loves dotted notes, uses the hemiola, is mostly written in binary form, depending on the style can either be majestic or lively in its tempo, has a female ending, and can be followed by a double. I hope this video was a good introduction to the courante. Stay tuned for my next video where we will be discussing the sarabande. And also don't forget to check out my own suite, linked in the description.